Welcome to TMG Today. Join other master manifestors across the globe to turn your goals into reality at lightning speed. Here, we connect the dots for you so you can skip all the nonsense and finally get unstuck. Right here on the Manifestor's Guide today. Let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to TMG Today, the Manifestor's Guide podcast. I am Dewey Taylor.
Hey, everyone. I am Charlie Carroll.
Oh, I like the ASMR-ness of what you just did. You're like, hello, everyone.
I'm working with the best of them, baby.
There you go. This is the intersection of universal law, success principles, and science. As always, if you find value in any of the episodes, we really appreciate it if you guys would share this with somebody that you care about and spread more of that value out into the world. That's the entire point of this podcast. So like, subscribe, and share. We are on YouTube. We're on podcasting apps, and on social media, we are at Manifestor's Guide. So come check us out. This is an extension of our Inner Circle online community. So you can check that out at manifestorsguide.com. If you want to be a part of that online community, we have access to unlimited coaching and our master manifestor system, get great blog articles. We got our podcast page, books, all sorts of cool stuff there. But also you can ask questions in that online community, and we have a community question. And what is that question?
Yeah, so our question this week is coming from Michael M. Michael is from Austin, Texas, and he is asking, my entire life I've been called lazy, but I don't think I am. I'm just unmotivated. I don't know why I do this because I don't want to be unmotivated, but I procrastinate and just never seem to make it happen. It's gotten so bad that my wife has almost divorced me several times, and I know something has to change. I'm in my 40s now and can't keep doing this. Any help here would be great. Thanks.
Wow.
Michael, we've got you, man.
That's a great question, Michael. And I think that that's something we all can relate to. I don't think I've ever met one person in my entire life that has not dealt with procrastination in some form or fashion. And
confused that with thinking that they're lazy. I've been there.
Yes, absolutely. And it puts a lot of pressure back on us as people when we desire to be something other than that, but we feel like we're letting ourselves down and letting down the people around us who we love and care about when we're not motivated. So that's why this episode is so important today, because it's really what we call stuck. You know, I feel stuck, right. That feeling of being stuck in the mud and not being able to move, even though you want to. I think that's what's so confusing for people. I desire to move in life. I desire to have motion. I desire to be something, but I just can't seem to do it. So what is that? That gap is what makes people so uncomfortable, because they do desire it for change.
And the fun thing that we'll talk about today is that gap is actually that feeling of frustration around not being able to move is actually a massive signal that there's an easier way.
Yes.
And I know we'll get into that a little bit later today. I'm excited to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a fantastic episode. So everybody, make sure you stick around. What we're going to be talking about, a little review of the last couple of weeks, because it really fits into our last several episodes that we've done, about like open cycles and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk about where inspiration comes from, how you tap into that inspiration. And then we're also going to talk about how to transcend past all of the things that are keeping us from being inspired. What are those things, and what is a transcendental state, and how do we transcend? So this is going to be a fantastic episode. I'm very excited, and we will talk about this and take the dive right after this short break. We'll see you right back here.
TMG is partnered with Podbean to bring you new episodes each week. Are you finally ready to step into your own power and let your voice be heard? Well, then why not start your very own podcast? Remember, what you find ordinary, others will find extraordinary. It's never been easier to produce and distribute your podcast to every major podcasting app available. Podbean also makes monetizing your podcast foolproof, so you can add value to the world while you're making money. Thanks to our partnership, you can try your first month absolutely free. Visit podbean.com/TMG today. That's podbean.com/TMG today.
Brain science has shown that by the time you're 7 years old, you've installed a program in your mind that you'll run for a lifetime. And for 99% of us, we're running a program of struggle. But you can change that. At TMG, we've designed a system to install this new programming to get you exactly where you want to go. With the power of brain science and multisensory learning, you'll discover your path of least resistance as you manifest your goals into reality. And for a limited time, you can try the Manifestor's Guide to Ease system absolutely risk-free. This system comes with unlimited access to weekly coaching for accelerated results, as well as instant membership into the Manifestor's Inner Circle online community. If you're ready to finally get unstuck and create the ultimate life success you know you're capable of, visit manifestorsguide.com. Use coupon code TMG Today for 10% off, and we'll send the Manifestor's Guide to Ease system to your email right now. That's manifestorsguide.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We are about to jump in and talk about the key to motivation. So, Charlie, have you ever been in that space in life where you have felt so stuck and you desired not to be stuck, but you still kept getting yourself stuck over and over again?
Absolutely. And for me, it took me a long time to realize this because I was trying to operate within the frameworks that I had been, largely raised in and given and told, this is how you do life. This is how you make things happen. But it literally, my stuckness originated in just always trying to make things happen and frankly, not being any good at it. Me trying to make things happen, force things into place has caused, in my younger years, a number of frustrations. And believing that I was solely responsible for, let me rephrase that, believing that it was all up to me to find the open doors and to force doors open that didn't want to open, left me feeling frustrated, like what I desired in life wasn't going to be available to me, like I wasn't worthy of it, like I wasn't any good at it. And I'll save further discussion on this for a little bit later, but I know we're going to talk about tapping into the inspired action today, tapping into inspiration instead of waiting for it. And I was caught in a place between not being able to create it on my own or having a really hard time with it, forcing things into place, but then also overly waiting for the inspired action and not living in a healthier space where I understood that I could tap into it at any time.
Yeah.
How about you? How does your story relate?
Yes, very similar. Before we get into the how, I would love to share my specific situation with my big goals and dreams in life. Big goals and dreams, right? Just always had this really strong desire to communicate with people through storytelling, through kind of what our business is doing now, just helping and communicating, telling stories. I think storytelling is so important in our society and our culture because it is throughout history a way that we've been able to teach principle. We've been able to teach the next generation. We've been able to pass on important information through stories. So I think that's what has always gravitated me towards storytelling in films and television and writing books. And so for me, I've always had this idea of always trying to achieve this bigger platform, not to be famous. I actually don't really want to be famous in any way, but achieve the platform just because it would allow more people to have access to things that I feel like are important. That legacy work, passing things on that are important to generations who, let's just face it, the younger generations now don't really pay attention a lot to things that have real intrinsic inherent value in them. The things that we're being told to pay attention to are pretty valueless,
Yes.
So for me personally, that's put a lot of pressure on me in a lot of ways. I've put a lot of pressure on myself that when I'm not seeing that happen in a way that I have a preconceived notion of in my head, it feels like I'm failing. It feels like I'm letting myself down. So I keep trying harder. I keep applying more force behind what I'm doing. And it's more pressure. And then the pressure keeps mounting. And then I keep failing. And then I try again. So it feels like I'm just falling down, getting kicked in the teeth. Life is setting me on fire and throwing me into the river, spitting on me. That's what it feels like. And that I'm some sort of a victim and I have to keep picking myself back up. And so that has been my story in the past over and over again. It is only in the last several years, really, that has started to change for me. And it doesn't surprise me at all that this business has been birthed into the world after that experience, because what I have learned caused this business to even start in the first place, caused this podcast to start. The Manifestor's Guide is a result of that experience coming to a close, So that's what we're driving in and talking about today, because I think everyone relates on some level to that. Just desiring more, wanting more, but it feels like so much pressure and it feels so heavy. And there is an easier way. And like, I love what you just said. That is an indicator when we're feeling that there's an easier way. When it starts to feel too heavy, that's the moment where we can go, hey, wait, stop. And then what? Then what? Because there's an easier way, but that's what we're about to talk about is the what. What do I do once I stop and realize, hey, red flag, this is starting to be way too complicated. Now what do I do?
And I think the value in today's episode is just going to point out to people that when it does feel too complicated, that's not just the way it has to be. That's a signal. And you have permission to stop and to go, wait a second, what am I? It's a simple analogy, but if I'm traveling upstream, if I'm traveling against the current, just like you said, you've got water hitting you in the face, you're getting pushed over, but yet the conditioning, the mindset that you have kind of keeps you thinking, well, this is just, life is walking upstream. Life is walking up against the current. Yeah. And especially when you're looking at, if you're in a problem mindset, if you're in a problem-focused mindset, which most people are, instead of just traveling along with the flow of life, and as questions come up, so the solution is just on the other side, and ultimately turning your focus and your movement downstream where you're flowing with the current, then the details, it's far easier to unplug from the details and just in a way, let the current flow you right through them to the best possible solutions. And I know we'll unpack that a little bit more later today as well. So more than anything, I think today is gonna give people permission to go, oh, I am allowed to stop. And I am allowed to go, you know what? This is upstream and I don't care for it. I'm going to turn it around.
We just did a really great coaching actually last night at the Manifestor's Guide Inner Circle, where we do weekly coaching with our community members, and we had an incredible coaching last night. It was really cool. Lots of breakthroughs, great light bulb moments. But one of the things that we were talking about was what you just mentioned, was this whole idea of, we talked about the law of rhythm, which is one that is ignored quite a lot by people when we're talking about universal law and law of attraction all the time. We always talk about attraction. Right. But you can block yourself and place blocks in your path over and over again by not moving with what we call in the Manifestor's Guide to Ease, our book, we call that the music of creation. You have to be going through the cycles of life with ease, and allow for all of it. We used an example of, you could be getting thrashed about in the waves in the ocean, or you could just grab a surfboard and ride the wave and start having fun with it. This is all a part of it. And what you said a few minutes ago, and we're just about to dive into this and start talking about the how, but that's a perfect example of that. When you start to see, think about a pendulum, right? When a pendulum swings to one side, it's going to swing back to the other side, but it's also going to come back again. That's an example of a cycle. And so when the pendulum's swinging to one side, this is our indicator that, wait a minute, I'm about to swing to the other side, and now I can start placing trajectory in a different spot so I can get further and farther. So the pendulum moves, so we have movement in our lives. If we did not have that movement, there would be no way forward. So that contrast that we experience is a part of the process and a part of the cycle, and it's a part of our growth. And when we grow, we're able to identify when it's time to exit the roundabout that we're on and move into a different new cycle and a new roundabout. And the faster we get with that cycle, the faster we move in life. So it's just about surrendering and allowing, really.
Yes. And as you pointed out in the coaching last night, the universe is always showing us macrocosms of the way it exists, and just in the cycle of the seasons, winter being a time of finishing, so to speak, or dying off of what needs to go, and then followed by spring, which is growth, new life. Summer being the peak of action and prime, and then fall, it's starting to move back into that slowing down before winter. Nothing is supposed to be perpetual winter, right? It's not supposed to be perpetual stuckness, perpetual immovability. And another just simple point to take away is if you are feeling that, it's a signal that your spring is right around the corner. The momentum is ready to move in that direction. It must move in that direction. It's the rhythm of life. So anyway.
Yes, if we allow, and that's the point too, we can either stay in that same roundabout. We could stay in the winter roundabout our whole lives and always be in winter and just live in Narnia, the whole time.
That's what it was. Yes.
Or we could realize that this is just part of us. Like, we have to travel through the winter roundabout to get to the next, spring, to get to the next summer, which takes us to the next fall. That's the whole point, is when you look at life as one roundabout after another, you're going to continue to move through. If you want to keep moving to better summers, you're going to go through the other seasons to get there. And I personally want the better summers. And I think the other seasons are so beautiful to move through because that's where the growth happens. So let's really quick, we're talking about the law of rhythm, but we, in the past couple of episodes, have talked about open cycles, like unfinished business, right? A lot of that has to do with also feeling really stuck in our lives. There's too much going on. There's too much in our heads, too many desires, too many unfinished things, too many relationships that we haven't gotten to a good space. We also talked about brainwave states, and especially within that brainwave state episode, talking about gamma frequency and above, which is where we tap into that, and that's where our solutions lie, right? So when we're talking about being inspired and inspired action versus forceful action, that's what we're really talking about, is tapping into that gamma brainwave frequency. And we've talked about, every example we've given so far is what Michael from Austin was talking about earlier. It is that forceful action. I'm trying to force myself to go to the gym. How many times have we done that? We hear this in our group quite a bit as well with our members, is, we talk about fitness a lot and fitness goals with people. That's one of probably the 3 or 4 main things that people bring up when they're talking about goals is fitness and going to the gym and losing weight and getting healthy. That and money are probably the top 2. But it is something that we talk about all the time. Nobody really wants to, and it's not sustainable to continue to force yourself to get up all the time and go do something when you don't want to. That's where inspiration comes from. If you can reframe things in your mind, and this is my first piece of advice to Mr. Michael here, is there's a reframing that needs to take place of, why are you even doing all this? Even if you have a great purpose in your life, like I do, I have a really great purpose for why I want to do everything. And I can sit here for 30 minutes and talk about it. But a component of that for me also dealt in achievement. Right? It wasn't manifesting something. It wasn't allowing something to enter my life the way that it was going to be best for myself and the world. It was achieving, which comes from the subconscious belief that you have to work hard for it. You have to earn something, right? You have to earn money. You have to work hard for your money, and then you earned it. Versus, that's why a lot of people who are in the, we'll say they're not in a wealth mindset, have a problem with wealthy people. They look at people and they say, well, they're not even earning their money. Their money's just making them money. Well, that's the point. That's ease, right? So
right.
If you're in a space where you feel like you have to earn everything and work hard, that's going to be your whole life. And it sounds like Michael is living in that space where it becomes so exhausting. The most exhausted I have ever been in my entire life is existing in that mindset. It's forceful action after forceful action, and trying to keep encouraging yourself, trying to keep, having conversations with people to keep your spirits high, listening to some affirmations, and then going back and pushing and pushing and pushing. It is beyond exhausting.
Yeah. And I relate to the immovability of it all. When you look at where you're at and you look at where you desire to be and what you desire to accomplish, and that may not even include the really big stuff. That could just include some shorter term goals that still overwhelm you, and you go, my gosh, the amount of action it would take seemingly to force something into place to make something happen just seems so momentous. And you just stop, you stay put, you freeze. Because this is how I respond. I freeze. Because I go, I don't know how to take a step before I know how to take all 40 steps that I'm supposed to take. And that is just, that's such an oppressive mindset to exist in. And that's why you procrastinate, because you're looking for this perfect, you're thinking your execution has to be perfect, for one. And you think that you are, it is solely your burden to come up with all the action steps, even the ones that it's not even possible for you to foresee. And this reminds me of another bit of advice that you recently gave one of our members, which is when you do start having when you realize your gap is so large between where you are and where you want to be, start the best way to start is to take the pressure off of it and just do something incremental every single day over a period of time, instead of waiting a period of time and then trying to do something massive. Start doing incremental things every single day that serve your greater goals, because over the period of a month or half a year or a year, the percentage of shift that you've made towards moving towards your goal is exponential. And yet it was manageable the entire way.
The exact example given of what you're talking about, literally, you can do the math. If you start with 1, and then you do an exponentially, you're not adding anything to that. In 365 days, you end up with 1 because nothing changed. But exponentially, over 365 days, if you just did 1% of what your goal was per day, which seems like absolutely nothing. If you just did 1%, at the end of the year, you would end up with 37. So if you actually look at that as percentage increases of where you started from, that's 3,600% more than what you started with. So you're not even getting 100% of your goal. You're far surpassing what your original goal was by just doing a 1% increment increase every single day. And so that right there, first of all, relieves a lot of pressure, which you said is important when we're talking about this, and motivation and inspired action. Getting the pressure off of yourself is absolutely imperative.
It's key.
So the first step, take a breath and give yourself a longer runway. A lot of times when people are talking about, I think one of our members was talking about possibly, wanting to lose weight within a certain period of time. And we said, well, maybe instead of trying to lose weight for this summer, why don't you just say, you know what, I'm going to give myself till next summer, and I'm going to be who I am right now. I'm going to take my pictures. I'm going to love myself as I am. And then I'm going to compare my photos and my health journey from this year to next year. Yes. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. Now, does that feel a little bit more attainable? Yes. And I could see immediately on their face just an exhale and a smile.
She was excited.
Beaming, because it was like, I don't have to force myself to do this in 2 months. That actually sounds really cool. I can just enjoy this summer and look forward to comparing next summer to this. And that's the point, is give yourself a longer runway. You don't have to try to, I just lost my job. We hear this a lot from guys. I just lost my job, and I'm the breadwinner, and so I'm going to try to level up. I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to prove myself, and I'm going to give myself a month or two to figure this out. And I'm like, a month or two? That's a lot of pressure, man. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it. But what we're talking about is if you're not in a space of being in that master manifestor energy, that's when it feels like pressure, right?
Yes.
If you can absolutely manifest something within the snap of a finger, you can manifest something in 24 hours.
Yes.
But if you're not there already, and it sounds like where Michael has been stuck in that same roundabout, the first step is to give yourself a longer runway to reduce the pressure, and then allow yourself the journey of becoming inspired by, tapping into this higher level energy, these brainwave frequencies that are higher than what you're normally getting into. And the only way to really do that is to, we've talked about a lot. If you haven't listened to the brainwave states episode, by the way, Go back and listen to it because it's fantastic. I think it was last week or the week before, but
Last week's episode, yes.
last week's episode. So what is important with brainwave states is realizing everything else that's in that category of the brainwave state. For instance, you and I always walk in the morning when we have our call at the beginning of the day for our company.
Yes.
And the reason I do that is because that gets me into the brainwave state. Physical activity gets you into those higher brainwave states of problem solving and things like that. So understanding those things, it sets you up for success. So a lot of people that don't feel motivated, what are they doing? They're sitting on the couch a lot. They're watching a lot of television.
Yes.
I don't feel motivated.
Sleeping.
That's not where motivation lies, guys. Being in that space, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very healthy. It's very healthy to be in alpha state. It's very healthy to be in, beta state. It's very healthy to be in those states. But when you're trying to move into the solution space, which is gamma and above, that is transcendental states. And even to get there, a good bridge to getting there is physical activity. That starts to get you into that space, but that still even exists in a higher frequency than focus, right? So physical activity will get you moving and get you focused, but then there's still higher frequencies to tap into. But that's a great start to get up off the couch, start walking, start thinking, get yourself a longer runway, take the pressure off. That is a fantastic way to start this journey of getting out of the unmotivated space.
I have read on a number of occasions from successful people who I think we would admire, actors, inventors, other very intelligent minds, talk about the power of walking and how many of them will, when a question comes up, the question is asked and then it's saved for a walk. And I'm sure, I know I have, and I'm sure many people in the audience have had the experience of going on a walk and not even realizing that they were asking for something, but then a brilliant idea comes to their mind, or they go, "Oh, yes, aha!" And that's exactly what that is. It's demonstration that your mind was in that higher brainwave state where these higher level ideas that really mean something for you that you can put into action come. So even walking as a practical thing that we can do that doesn't take much time out of your day is a great way to start moving.
Waiting for solutions versus tapping into solutions. And that's where I think we can really provide some clarity here for Michael and all the listeners is this is not something you have to sit around and wait for and twiddle your thumbs and say, gosh, I just hope inspiration hits me. I'm not feeling very inspired. You can do things now like walking, like getting some physical movement in your life to create spiritual and psychological movement. Those all exist on the same frequency. It's tapping into clarity, tapping into solutions. The solution space is a real place where solutions exist. Don't believe me? Start reading about Nikola Tesla a lot, right? Solution space exists 100%. You just have to tap into that frequency. So when you are only used to existing and you've only been taught to exist between those lower range frequencies, right? Especially, we'll even say the middle range frequencies. That's even, when I say worse, just meaning you're not getting really deep, rejuvenating sleep, and you're also not really tapping into solutions and or even solving problems, really. A lot of people don't even get into the problem solving space. So gamma and frequency and above is something that they really never encounter. That is where solutions lie. So for Michael, just relieve the pressure, man. Relieve the pressure. Allow yourself to get some actual physical movement in your life, which will create emotional and spiritual movement, which will create the idea movement. And that's when you'll start to see the steps form. You know, when you tap into these solutions, your path starts to be laid out for you one little brick at a time. And that's another thing I would absolutely say for anybody that's in this space feeling stuck. Don't think that you have to have the whole journey mapped out before you start.
Right.
You usually take a few steps that have been laid out for you. And then as you're kind of reaching the end, more steps come and you start tapping into more solutions because you get to the end, and that contrast allows you to send out a new desire. And then you have more solutions to those desires. And you're constantly putting down your own path of least resistance right in front of you in real time as you go. So if you don't start the journey before you see every single step, if you don't just start moving on it, then you're not going to ever have those moments that you need to encounter on the journey to put more steps down. So you're going to stay even more stuck. That's why motivation has to be something that you tap into and that you lean into. You have to trust that process and be motivated within yourself to trust yourself, and be motivated because you're excited about the journey that you're going to go on and discover something. That's the difference between wanting answers versus discovering solutions as you move forward through a journey. And that's the whole concept of embracing an adventure is going to be critical for people who are really trying to get out of that pressure space. That's when it starts to become fun, and life's supposed to be fun,
Yes, absolutely.
Gamma frequency is the idea solution space. We always say that is a transcendental state. And I remember I was asked this by somebody very recently. They were like, well, that's great. I get it. I know what transcendental means, but what am I transcending? Which I thought was kind of funny, but it's a good question. And Eleanor Roosevelt actually has a great quote, and it says, "Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people." And I've always gravitated toward that quote because to me, it is so clear what the kind of bigger picture space is, the great minds space, right? Great minds discuss ideas. They discuss the bigger picture. So what are we actually transcending? Well, we're transcending average mindset, small mindset, which means conversations and thoughts being directed towards specific people, directed towards specific situations, circumstances, anything in your micro world that you can point your finger at and examine on a microscopic level. That's an indicator right there when you're living in that space, right? Let's say when you want to place blame on your boss at work that fired you, or you want to say, oh, those people were toxic, or this or that, where you're pointing your finger at people, or some guy cut you off on the road and you want to talk about drivers in this state, any of that kind of stuff. When you want to talk about your circumstances, other people around you, that is an indicator, a red flag that you are not in the bigger picture space. So we're trying to get to a space where none of the details matter. And when we're in that space, a really great indicator that we're in the big picture space is that we have a lot of grace for other people, for ourselves. We're providing, like I said, a runway for ourselves. We're giving other people time, energy, and space to have their own journey and to have their own runways and be where they are on their journey at the time that they need to. That has nothing to do with us. That also takes a lot of pressure off of things as well. When we don't have to worry about other people constantly, it's just giving everything its own space and its own time, and just allowing. That state of allowing is so important when you're trying to tap into inspiration. And that's what brings motivation. Motivation cannot be relied on all the time by itself. Because if you're sitting around waiting for yourself to feel motivated to do something, you're never going to do anything. So that's why it's important to get up, start moving, start tapping into that solution space, because that's what's going to get you there and get you there a lot quicker.
Absolutely. Right? You are right. The solution space is unplugged from the details. But it's so helpful to look at the details that you engage. And even start looking at what problems do I choose? When you look at when you look at the details you're plugging into and how they're serving you or not serving you, and how your focus is intention, perhaps maybe you don't realize, but is bringing up problems that don't even have to exist in your life, and starting to unplug from those details and turning off things. We do media blackout in our system because the media, and it's not a condemnation of any media, but it just so happens that at this point in the timeline of life, the media is incredibly plugged into details and is constantly feeding people reasons to be angry or scared or XYZ, and even our entertainment does that. It frustrates the mind, and it keeps people plugged into that middle range, that alpha state, which is just a range where you are being fed and accepting the information coming to you. And So it's just it's just great to be able to look at what you are feeding yourself day to day, and how is it serving you. Is it details that help you, or are they details that they're slowing you down? Are they causing you to go upstream? And then allowing yourself, taking the pressure off it, telling yourself a new story, as we say time and again in our coaching, and allowing yourself to take that 1% every single day to start living and feeling that downstream mode, where you are easily moving out of being stuck and into productivity, but an easy productivity, one that serves where you're going, because you're just allowing and embracing every single day. And what you get done every single day is perfect. There was nothing else to do.
If you allow yourself to go on that adventure, that journey, in a space where, and that's why segmenting is also important, and compensation is important, to create the time and the space for you to have that adventure. That's also important. As long as you say it's not about doing X to get Y and Z done by the end of the day, right? It's not saying that I have to do a specific thing in order to get a specific result. Release the attachment to the result. Just allow yourself the space to contribute to that. Contribute that 1% every day. Give yourself an hour to do whatever it is. And then just allow the results to be what they are. That's the adventure. That's where you're going to start tapping into that solution space. So you take the pressure off, because the honest truth is, if you already knew what the result that you needed to achieve in order to get where you wanted to go, you would already be there. So there is a missing piece there that you need to discover, and that's what the adventure is all about. And I love that you were talking about the details a little bit more in that. A couple more details that I would love to just share with everybody. You know, we talked about people, situations, events, but this has to do with like reality TV as well. Think about politics, news, gossip, all that stuff. You know, that right there is a huge part of people's experience in life right now, that they're tuning into that. We talked about, tuning last week. We have to tune out of that space in order to tune into the solutions and the inspiration space. So if we keep tuning into our favorite TV show that's a bunch of people gossiping about what? Events, circumstances, and other people, we are tapping right into the very thing that's keeping us from getting to where we want to go. That's what the news is. That's what gossiping with our friends about somebody else is about. Superficial interests, clothes, being fabulous, looking a certain way online, social media. All of those things are the exact opposite of what we're talking about. And that's what Eleanor Roosevelt was saying. Transcend those things. The big idea space, the great mind space, is where the solutions lie. So for Michael and everybody else, a recommendation I also have is to just be cognizant of where you are tuning into. Are you tuning into things that are keeping your mind in that space where you're talking about people, situations, events, circumstances, the micro? Or are you creating space for you to expand into that macro space? So
realizing that we only have so much bandwidth to offer day in and day out.
Exactly.
And how that bandwidth is being consumed. And again, this is not Dewey and I are not condemning any one of these things. It's just looking at how they're taking up space in your life.
I'm personally condemning all of it.
I'm condemning fashion choices. But no, it's just looking at
I'm very fashionable right now, so
I'm
all about fashion.
Show up in our black shirts every week.
Black on black on black. Yeah.
Yes. But it's just being mindful and, as you said, cognizant of what you're allowing your bandwidth to be taken up by, and then making the correlation between how you are moving in life or not moving, and how you're feeling about all of that. This is a bottom line with the old program versus the new program, as we talk about. The old program tells you none of that means anything. It just is just experience. It just says, that's just what it is. Life's just frustrating. These details are all super important and require your immediate attention, and fill your day up with all these details. And it's just not having space for more grander focuses. It's just not for you. And the new program says that's all nonsense. That's all a big
because it
lie.
is nonsense.
It is nonsense. It's so dumb.
I'll leave everybody with this week. We always tell our members to tap into what we call their portal of creation. That is that solution space. That's where the greatest ideas and solutions we will ever tap into in our entire life will exist. And so I'm going to leave Michael and all the listeners there this week to just visualize that space, spend some time with that space, your portal of creation, where those solutions lie that transcends the people, situations, events, and circumstances of your life. And I promise by putting a little movement, physical movement behind one step in front of the other physically, we'll also do that in other spaces in your life, including emotionally and spiritually for yourself as well. Charlie, is there anything you wanted to say to the listeners before we head out?
No, that was a great way to close. How about just subscribe for more episodes every week? Share the value, share this with your friends and family. If you find value in this, let others find the value as well.
Absolutely. And if you want to join our Inner Circle online community as well, visit manifestorsguide.com. We've got a ton of great stuff there that you can check out, including blogs and stuff if you want to listen to more episodes. We also have a podcast page there as well. But if you want to ask questions on the podcast, please be a part of our community. We would absolutely love to work with you one-on-one. So we will talk to you guys next week and talk about being triggered in the forbidden zone. See you then.
See you all later.